Now that we've set up the code that verifies that the user has credentials, it's time to verify with Twitter if these credentials are authorized. To accomplish this, we are going to use the Unix command curl. Curl has a tremendous amount of features, and you can see them all by typing curl man in the terminal, and that's CURL space MAN. And that'll bring up a man page telling all about curl and what its functionality is. Lucky for us though, the Twitter API gives us example usage for validating credentials. Let's open up Safari and take a look. We're at the Twitter API documentation, and you can find this at api.twitter.com/Twitter-API-documentation. And on the left-hand side, we have a list of all of the methods that are available to us through this API. Now, the one we're looking for is to verify credentials. So we come down, it's under Account Methods, and here it is, Account Verify Credentials. And we're going to click on this, and here are the instructions for verifying credentials. We can see that it returns an HTTP 200 OK response if the user was successfully authenticated. Otherwise, it returns a 401. If we look down at the next line, it'll show us the URL that we use. And then we have formats. There's HTML and JSON, and we're going to be using the HTML format. It tells us which HTTP method is being used, and this is a GET method. The other option would be POST. Requires authentication, that's true. That makes sense since we are actually authenticating the user. It looks like there's no API rate limit for checking the authorization of a user. And we come down, we have geolocation, and then we have response. And this is an example of the XML that's returned if the user is authorized. We'll look at this a little more later when we introduce NSXML document. Now, if you come all the way down to the bottom, it's going to give us an example curl statement. And here we can see it's curl -u, the user, a colon, a password, and then the URL. And that's the statement we're going to need to verify credentials. So I'm just going to highlight this whole statement right here. And I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to hide Safari. Our TM Twitter class is the one that handles all the authorization and communication with Twitter. So let's go over there and add a new method. And instead of using this sidebar, we also have a menu at the top. This is your recent items menu. And we can just click on this, go down to the file we want to go to, and click enter. And it takes us right to that file. So I'm going to add the method declaration right below hash credentials. And we're going to do the same thing with this one. It's going to be a bool. And we're going to name this one is user authenticated. I'll save that and go over to the implementation file. And I'm going to come down under hash credentials, and I'll add that method right here. I'm going to add a single line comment with 2 forward slashes, and then I'm going to paste that line in that we got from Twitter. That's the information we're going to need to construct our curl call. As I said previously, to use curl, we're going to use the class NSTask. Let's go ahead and write the code to create our NSTask. So to create an NSTask, we started off with NSTask, and I'll just call this one task. And we'll instantiate an object using a lock and a init. We're going to need a pipe, and I'll just call this pipe. Keep all this simple. NSPipe has a class method called pipe, and that will return an instance for us. And the last thing we're going to need is an NSFile handle. There's a few more lines we have to write, and then I'll come back and explain each one of these. I'll go ahead and tab that over. Line these up a little bit. So that's what we're going to need to create our task. So next we need to set options for our task. So we'll say task, and we'll set the launch path. And our launch path is going to be user bin curl. And that's where curl is on your computer. The next thing is we're going to set the arguments. We haven't created the arguments yet, but we'll do that in a minute. And I'm just going to call this one arguments. The last option we need to set is set standard output. And we're going to set this to the pipe that we created. Now that the task is configured, we're going to launch it. Then we're going to read the data that was returned. And then we're going to create a string from the data that we just got back. At this point, we're done with the task, so we're going to release it. We're going to log the string that we just got back to the console, so we can see all that good XML data we got back. And the last thing we need to do is release the string.